Hello! Oleg's fiancée, Svetlana, has a rather unusual family. However, this same family turns out to be the only possibility for saving Oleg's life when he gets into trouble and is in debt for a large sum of money. In the hope of improving the situation by securing a loan against their real estate, he turns for help to his future father-in-law, Boris Alexeyevich, who in response throws a huge scandal. The attempt could have ended in failure, but the situation is turned on its head by a meteorite that crashes onto the property, giving the Bobrovs and Oleg superpowers. And the previously uncooperative bunch devise a plan to rob a bank. Oleg, an entrepreneur, and his partner earn money by reselling caviar. The duo on a flimsy boat picks up cargo from a team of fishermen led by a tough guy named Valera, hoping to make some quick money. Oleg, without informing the captain, coaxes Valera to lower a ton of caviar onto the boat instead of the agreed 600 kilograms, hoping to get it ashore without any problems. While Oleg is enjoying the fresh delicacy in anticipation of his future profit, the captain notices that the boat cannot bear the cargo and that the water is coming closer and closer to the edges of the vessel. A moment later, it becomes clear that the boat is sinking, and Oleg and the captain make it to the shore with empty hands. Oleg has to pay for the sunken boat with his own imported automobile, and in return, gets the captain's old shabby car. Despite losing his cargo, Oleg must pay for the caviar supply, and he decides to go to his girlfriend, Svetlana, who works at the bank, for help. The guy begs his fiancée to take another loan, which is impossible without collateral. Svetlana suggests the only way out, to ask her parents to secure the loan with their house. With no other options, the couple sets out to negotiate. After spending the last New Year's vacation together, Oleg is not fond of the Bobrov family. Svetlana's father, Boris Alexeyevich, has been on the wanted list for 5 years and never leaves the house, having surrounded it with a sturdy fence. Mother Rita works in the theater and secretly dreams of performing in front of an audience, so she peeks admiringly from behind the scenes at dancers in exotic costumes. The younger sister, Alexandra, dreams of quickly becoming a grown woman and tries on her mother's lingerie in secret. Svetlana's brother, Tolik, a frail asthmatic, has a burning desire to get into the army, but gets rejected due to poor health every single time. And as a bonus, the militant grandfather, Pavel Grigorovich, tired of life and bitter at the whole world. Oleg and Svetlana pull up to the Bobrovs' house and catch the family gathered around the toilet. The youngest daughter is hanging upside down next to it, tightening the screws on the rusty pipes. Oleg, intent on getting straight to the point, resolutely suggests to Boris Alexeyevich to have a word with him. The meeting with the family drags on. The father, red-faced from alcohol, starts playing the guitar, singing his favorite hits, while the women are preparing dinner. With a sour face, Oleg unsuccessfully tries to get his future father-in-law to talk about the collateral in the loan, without which, his next meeting with the large Valera will not be as pleasant as the previous ones. Gathered for dinner, Oleg and Svetlana finally reveal the reason for their arrival. The head of the family furiously swings his arms, sarcastically inviting them, along with a letter of guarantee to the bank, to sell the whole Bobrov family into slavery. Everyone is on his side except Svetlana, who tries to defend the interests of her fiancé, from whom the mistrustful grandfather, Pavel Grigorovich, takes away the passport and begins to examine it. In the midst of a family scandal, a meteorite crashes into the Bobrovs' living room, crushing the grumpy grandfather along with his chair. In panic, the family heads to the basement and, to their surprise, finds the grandpa completely unharmed. After lifting him out of the crater, the Bobrovs realize that a meteorite has fallen on them, which they begin digging out immediately. By morning, Oleg manages to retrieve a block of rock from under the ground. With it, he goes to the first floor of the house, where Pavel Grigorovich calls him to come closer. Weakened by the blow, the grandfather is about to take his last breath and turns to our protagonist with his last words. Refusing an ambulance and the presence of relatives who had gone to bed that night, Pavel Grigorovich dies in front of stunned Oleg, who immediately rushes to Svetlana's bedroom to tell the tragic news. But the girl is still unable to wake up after the night of digging in the basement. Exhausted, Oleg falls asleep sitting on the edge of the bed, but is immediately pulled out of his slumber by a worried Tolik. In the living room, Oleg sees little Alexandra bending metal pipes with ease, and for some reason, Rita descends the stairs while desperately clinging to the railing. It turns out that the woman is now flying in the air like a balloon. Trying to get her down to the floor in panic, those gathered witness something even worse. Rita's legs are going down the stairs on their own, and Pavel Grigorovich rises from the dead. After calming down a bit, the Bobrovs and Oleg try to understand what happened. Their reasoning leads them to the correct idea. All this is the consequences of the impact of the meteorite, while Boris Alexeyevich supervises the pouring of red wine, which he believes will neutralize the chemical poisoning. The invisible Svetlana decides that they urgently need to go to the hospital as soon as she disappears from sight. the family immediately loses their abilities, so the heroes realize that everyone's superpowers only work when they stick together. By evening, the commotion subsides, and the newly minted superheroes are happy to show off their powers, contemplating on how to use them. Unfortunately, they can't reach a conclusion, and Tolik, after an argument with Rita, goes out to feed the dogs. He discovers his power. Now the boy can understand the language of the four-legged creatures. Only the powers of Oleg and Boris Alexeyevich remain unknown. Boris discovers his gift the very next morning. In an attempt to relieve himself, the man realizes that he can teleport. The elder Bobrov gathers the family, exhausted by recent events, for a fishing trip. While each of them hones their powers there, Oleg tries to continue the conversation about the money, now offering a different plan. Using invisibility, Svetlana will break into the bank and steal the money, while the others peacefully wait for her in a car nearby. Once again, the company fails to reach a consensus, and Boris Alexeyevich gives the last decisive word. He flatly rejects his son-in-law's proposal. Angry, Oleg takes his fiancée and goes home, believing that the affair will never happen. However, two cars cut off the couple on the road, and it turns out that the pursuers are Valera and his bandit buddies. The former partner reminds the protagonist of his debt and gives him a deadline of 1 week to get 1,200,000 rubles. The life of the man she loves is in danger, and Svetlana eventually agrees to the affair. Now, the couple must convince the elder Bobrov. Svetlana easily manages to do this by shedding a tear in the presence of her father, and the company of newly minted gangsters begins to plan a bank robbery. Having agreed upon all the details, the family throws a wild party to celebrate their imminent riches. While the Bobrovs are having fun, Oleg, who feels inferior in the company of superheroes, tries to determine his abilities and is amazed when he manages to use telekinesis. However, this turns out to just be a joke by his fiancée. The next morning, Oleg prepares breakfast for his accomplices. But suddenly, every member of the family begins to make demands. The grandfather is not going to rob the bank without a promise to cremate him. Rita declares that she wants to perform in front of an audience. Tolik needs to find his dog that got lost recently. And the elder Bobrov makes the final verdict. Outraged by these developments, Oleg must do whatever the family asks for, even if it's impossible.
Ты должен в лепешку расшибиться, чтобы все были довольны.
The nervous strain helps Oleg finally discover his gift at night. It turns out that he can shoot water through his index finger, like a water pipe. The next morning, before they leave to do the Bobrov's whims, Oleg, Svetlana, and Alexandra go on a scouting trip to the bank to work out the details of the robbery. Upon returning, Oleg sees Tolik, hairless and in a military t-shirt. He announces that he is leaving for the army. For the sake of the plan, they have to act quickly and bribe the military commissioner to get Tolik back into the team. And later, by showing him compassion, to get his unconditional support. Soon, a new task comes up. They must take the immortal grandfather to the crematorium and arrange the incineration. Immediately afterwards, Oleg goes to a restaurant with Alexandra, who is secretly in love with her older sister's fiancé, but has to flee from there after meeting Valera and his assistants, whom the girl scatters around the corners like soft toys. The next morning, Super Bobrovs finally get together and head out to complete the affair. On the spot, it turns out that Svetlana arrived wearing the wrong clothes, not the same ones she wore when she got her superpowers. So the girl must undress in order to become completely invisible and enter the bank. Oleg goes with her. The Bobrovs that remain in the parking lot get hot under the blazing sun. So Boris decides to drive away into the shade. Everything goes smoothly until the bank's collectors show up and their way is blocked by the super family's car. Bobrov Sr. refuses to give way, for the team can't move further away to keep their powers active. At this time, the collectors push their car into the back alley, and at this point, Svetlana's situation takes a bad turn. They manage to avoid complete failure, and the group is about to flee the scene of the failed crime, when suddenly, they see the police heading in their direction. Boris Alexeyevich, who is wanted, immediately teleports away, but to his own misfortune, lands in the bank collector's car. He is rescued from the trouble by Oleg, who happens to know the right people everywhere. But upon returning home, the guy grows furious at the family's carelessness and yells at them, making it clear that he is now in charge of the operation and forbids the Bobrovs to use their powers impulsively. It turns out, however, that Rita's wish has not yet been granted, and she is scheduled to perform at a cultural center today. The family immediately reminds the woman of her previous unsuccessful performance a long time ago, and in tears and with her ears plugged, she runs off to the bathroom. This ruthless attitude infuriates Oleg, and he decides to make Rita's dream come true. But in the evening, everything goes wrong. Just before going on stage, Rita chickens out and flies away, and Oleg, trying to stop her, is caught by Valera and his thugs. And instead of a flying woman, the audience enjoys the performance of a flying man who is thrown from side to side across the stage, barely making it out of the mess on his own feet. Oleg completely loses his composure and expresses all his dissatisfaction with the Boborovs.
Стоят, наглые, самодовольные, ленивые, тупые халявщики.
Unable to tolerate them any longer, Oleg decides to deal with his problems himself, just to be away from this family. This blunt truth has sobered Boris Alexeyevich. Having tied up Oleg in order to preserve their superpowers, he assembles the family for a robbery. The robbers return to the bank at night and act perfectly as a team. After taking out the safe with the money, they move the loot into the trunk of the car and quickly flee the scene, avoiding a police chase at the very last moment. The supercriminals arrive at the seashore, where they rejoice without holding back their emotions. Their joy is interrupted by Pavel Grigorovich, the old man who dreams of going to heaven, demands to keep the promise and asks the family to leave him to die, threatening to call the police and turn in the entire group if they don't do so. With mixed feelings, the Boborovs say goodbye to the old man, but the farther they drive away from the shore, the more the silent tension builds up in the car. Eventually, during the division of the loot, Svetlana urges everyone to return the money to the bank and take their grandfather back. Only Oleg, who has been fighting the Boborovs to the end to save his life and get rid of his debt, resists this decision, and at the request of his ex-fiancée, is kicked out of the team along with the money. The first thing Oleg does is go to the port and pay back the debt to Valera, and then, covering himself in dollars, he buys a business class ticket and waits at the airport for his flight to Thailand to escape to the sunny country and forget his past life like a bad dream. Adjusting his trousers with a bunch of bills sticking out from under them and drinking whiskey, Oleg sees a news report about certain bank robbers who show up at the morgue to buy back a dead old man's body for $100,000. And then the whole Boborov family itself is shown behind prison bars. Already at the departure gates, Oleg nevertheless sets out to save them, and the next day, along with the stolen body of the grandpa, appears in court, where the organized criminal group is being read its verdict. The family reunion gives superpowers back to each of its members, and the Super Boborovs first manage to escape from behind the bars and then out of the courthouse. The family breaks away from their pursuers and arrives at the harbor, from where they leave in a shipping container on a long journey to hot Thailand. As always, you'll find the name of the movie in the description of the video. In the comments, let us know what you think. If you suddenly got superpowers, would you be able to resist the temptation to outsmart the law? And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next awesome retelling.